Hi everyone, it's Eleanor here. Before we start the video proper, I thought I'd show you this photo of 8 volumes of poetry on my shelf that I'm not going to be talking about. Nope, I'm going to be talking about 8 very different volumes, 6 of them written by women, 2 by men, 6 of them written in the 21st century, 1 of them written in the 20th century, and 1 in the 19th. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get started. Hi, welcome back. My name is Eleanor. Today I'm doing a tag. I'm really excited about it. It's so lovely. Thank you, Emily, from the Linguists Library. I really appreciate you tagging me. It means a lot to me. And also thanks to Ruben from Readers It May Concern, who I know worked with you, and it is another great discovery for me, so thank you. The light here is just right at the moment, I think, and I'm taking advantage of it because ever since I read the tag, I've been completely overthinking it to the point of obsession. It's absolutely ridiculous. So I thought I'll just do it quickly and get it off my chest while there's light. So here we go. Beauty in concept. That's something that is like super easy for me to find anywhere on my shelves because I am a big fan of conceptual poets. That's actually how I came to poetry, through that sort of experimental side. It was hard for me to choose one. I ended up choosing one of my all-time favorite poets. Her name, American poet, her name is Laynie Browne. And I chose the first book I read of hers called Daily Sonnets. Her concept here is to write a sonnet quickly in the time she has, using whatever material she has on hand. She was at that time a mother of 2 little boys, and she still wanted to write poetry. And I think this is a really good example of how there are many positive stories of women who have families and who have children, who continue to write in many ways and enjoy the input of their young children. There is hope. So I thought I'd give you an idea of what she does. Some of her sonnets are called half sonnets, or for example, this one is called half sonnet plus 1. She, instead of being strict about the form, she does as much as she has time for. She has post-shower sonnet. She has sonnets that don't rhyme, sonnets that don't manage to get to the 14 lines, sonnet that may not even have a volta, but she puts it out there, and I find that this is a beautiful concept because it allows the reader to view themselves and whatever art they do also without that perfectionism that is that can be so that can be so damaging. So here she has a poem called Half Sonnet Plus 1. The little water that conquered the world. I don't have stories when I have my clothes on. My household is too malleable. This whistle isn't for whistling. Tables come and go, ants, guests, calls about fraud, no space in swim class, observing negativity in kindergarten, a long drink from my toothbrush. Another one that she has a series of what she calls protector sonnets or amulets. Here's one called Protector Number 4. It's a bit of a list sonnet, I suppose. Against poetry from the New Yorker, spiders on the potty, menacing balloons, nail broth. Against the time has come when you all must go and seek your fortunes. Against undone deeds. Against I wish that my pails could go of themselves to the well and home again. Against whatever I strike shall break right off, whatever I pull shall become long. I do love her very much. Okay, first line, a no-brainer, and actually connected to Laynie Browne, because one of Laynie Browne's mentors was the great, great Bernadette Mayer. It's a very famous book in American poetry, Midwinter Day. Now, I mean, the concept of this is also interesting. All the concepts of all poetry books are interesting, let's be frank. But this one in particular, she claims to have decided to just write a book-length poem in one day, in the 24 hours of Midwinter Day. And the way she starts this is just superb. Now, I should say that the way she writes this, there's very little punctuation, at least at the beginning, and there are no full stops. So I'm going to decide where the first line stops, because it just keeps going. Stately you came to town in my opening dream. Lately you've been showing up a lot. I saw clearly you were staying in the mirror with me. You walk in, the hills are green. I keep you warm, placed in this cold country in a town of mountains, replaced from that balmier city of yours near the sea. Now it's your turn to fall down from the love of my look. You stayed in the hotel called your daughter's arms. No wonder the mother's so forbidding, so hard to embrace. I only wait in the lobby, in the bar, I write. People say, what is it? I ask if I must tell all the rest, for never since I was born, and for no man or woman I've ever met, I'll swear to that, have there been such dreams as I had today, the 22nd day of December, which, as I can now remember, I'll tell you all about, if I can. Okay. Next, character. Chose a book that I already mentioned, but it's Today in the Taxi by Sean Singer, a book of prose poems. When I was thinking of character, it's different to think about characters in poetry, and this prompt was very helpful to me because it made me realize that one of the things that really keeps me so engaged in this book, despite the fact that it has a quite surreal and mysterious element that's quite slippery when you try to understand it, one of the constants is the personality of the taxi driver, because when each prose poem starts, Today in the Taxi, I. Now this taxi driver is extraordinarily likable. I'm surprised that I didn't notice that before. But first of all, he seems to be a good driver and confident. So there's a sense that whoever comes into his taxi is safe. He's very open to different personalities, but he's not passive when he has passengers that he really dislikes. For example, he has he has a couple of women who I think work at with Fox News or something like that, and he doesn't really approve of them. But in any case, I'll read you the one that I think really nails it, that after you read this one, you just, even though there's an element of confusion towards the end, you are immediately on his side. Actually, I read two because there's two that really come across as particularly telling of his character. So this one is called Anti-Venom. Today in the taxi, I got a fare from Parkchester to the Bronx Zoo. She finally came out of the building, put her baby in the car seat and said, I forgot something upstairs. Then she left the baby in the car and went back inside for about 7 or 8 minutes. I couldn't believe it. I'm a safe person to leave a baby with, but she didn't know that. I was nervous. Some people live without contradiction. I remained calm, though the situation was beyond the job description. Don Bias had a serpent's tooth affixed to the octave key of his tenor saxophone. Perhaps it helped him push into the wilderness or to ward off evil. One sunny July, Kafka says he wept over the report of the trial of Marie Abraham, who, because of poverty and hunger, strangled her 9-month-old with a man's tie she used as a garter. It's really quite something. I should say this taxi driver also knows a lot about jazz and music generally, so there's that, which is of considerable interest. I have to read you another one. So good. This one's called Dirt. Tonight in the taxi, I got a call from a passenger. A man said, "Who is this?" I said, "You called me. You have the wrong number." He said angrily, "Your number was in my wife's phone and it said, 'I'm on the way.' I said, 'I'm a taxi driver. Maybe that's what it is.' He hung up. When Jeremiah asked for a solution to stopping the golem who was destroying Prague, he was told, 'Write the alphabet backward with intense concentration on the earth. Do not meditate in the sense of building up, but the other way around.' I thought of a night at an East Village hotel when I didn't, but almost did, have an affair with the visiting poet. She was a pair of scissors cutting a silent letter out of a word. Though the golem has a human shape, you could say external beauty has been denied him. Hillel commented, 'Where there is no one, try to be a human being.'" So good. That's character. Pain was a really tough one for me. I don't like to read books that have a lot of pain in them. I don't gravitate towards them, so I didn't have much. But I did just recently buy Victoria Chang's latest book, With My Back to the World. I wanted to see what she was going to do with the prose poem. It's a book of mostly, I think, prose poems, if not all. And also it's ekphrastic poetry. She is writing in response to many of the paintings of Agnes Martin. I think there's another artist as well, but it's mostly Agnes Martin. I'm hesitating because I don't know if beauty is the right word, but there's a very powerful pain in this book. If that's what you need, this is the book for you. It's quite plainly written. You may be familiar with Agnes Martin's work. It's very abstract and also I feel is very joyful. It seems through this book, Victoria Chang is bringing a confessional approach to a connection to Agnes Martin. She's almost begging and pleading at times directly, Agnes, please show me. Agnes, please help me. She's in such pain due to death that she's experiencing. And generally, I also think experiencing middle age and changes in her life, that she's unable really to see any of the paintings objectively. And while that is not something that I was looking for when I read this book, I have been thinking about it a lot and coming back to it. So I do recommend it if that's what you're looking for at the moment. I might read you something. I didn't really plan this. Let's see, Buds 1959. Almost all of the titles are the titles also of the paintings. You know, the poem matches each painting title. Grieving starts long before we're born. Oh, by the way, it is a prose poem. I should show you. Okay. Buds 1959. Grieving starts long before we're born, which is why we're born with 35 buds of sadness. The buds begin to fade at our birth. I only have 3 buds left because I sold most of my grief already. I've been holding my breath for years, and when I finally breathe out, there are people at my door waiting to collect my breathing in jars to sell. When I tell them I don't want to sell what's left, they bring jars of moonlight for my poems for $12 each. I buy one because the people look like Girl Scouts and are pulling a wagon. When they turn, I can see that they have tails. When I put the moon in a poem, it quivers like a strobe light nearly out of batteries. Once, a dying woman said goodbye on Twitter right before she died. Sometimes I go onto the accounts of dead people and read their final posts. I listen to music while scrolling. The people singing in my ears are also dead. It is getting harder to be born and to vanish at once. Isn't this what we all wanted anyway? As you can see, it's actually quite distressing. Anyway, onwards. Place was a no-brainer. The Stone Age by Jen Hadfield. Such an amazing poet. And thank you again, Emily, for the prompts, because I hadn't thought about Jen Hadfield for ages, and I Googled her, and I see that she won a massive award, massive poetry award, a large amount of money, which I'm so pleased with. She's an incredible poet, and she also apparently had a baby recently. So I'm very much looking forward to what she writes about motherhood. But apart from that, in a few months, she has a non-poetry book. I don't know if it's fiction or non, but it's about her experience of living in Shetland. Now, I'd never thought of Shetland before in my life, and also I'm not the kind of person who really wants to travel. I traveled a lot when I was young. I moved from country to country with my family, and I don't even want to go to the shop up the road, frankly. But once I read The Stone Age, I thought to myself, one day I'd like to go to Shetland. She has a particular way of writing about the cliffs, the tidal pools, and also the huge stone boulders. So I've chosen this one to read. The title is Fast, which is Gaelic for bedrock. I midwife 100 rocks in a day, red rocks glistening like anvils. Each must be delivered in its own way, uncleaving root-veined fascias. With shocking noise they broach the light, red-cheeked and muddy, marred and birthmarked, leaving in sucking soil the imprint of their darling faces. I prize the sticking children, back-breaking work, but no poor me, although I've been a missionary while you raised your 1 or 2. I have this consolation of strong and silent types, my 100 quiet ones that take to talking late and slow. She's incredible. I'm losing the light. I've got to go quickly. This is very good. Time. W.S. Merwin, Garden Time. This was the first book I read of W.S. Merwin. I've gone on to be a massive fan. This was his last book, I believe. He was quite elderly when he wrote it. The thing about W.S. Merwin is, in his later years at least, he didn't write with any punctuation, and yet it reads as if there is punctuation. It's incredible. These are poems that deal with getting old and realizing that you don't have much time left. I'll read you maybe the first and the last poem. They're quite short. This is the first poem. The Morning. Would I love it this way if it could last? Would I love it this way if it were the whole sky, the one heaven? Or if I could believe that it belonged to me, a possession that was mine alone? Or if I imagined that it noticed me, recognized me, and may have come to see me out of all the mornings that I never knew, and all those that I have forgotten? Would I love it this way if I were somewhere else? or if I were younger for the first time, or if these very birds were not singing, or I could not hear them or see their trees, would I love it this way if I were in pain, red torment of body or grey void of grief? Would I love it this way if I knew that I would remember anything that is here now? Anything, anything. And the very last poem, it's called Wish. Please, one more kiss in the kitchen before we turn the lights off. And I want to say, there are poets out there, and there are also writers and experimental writers, I want to remind people, because that have long-lasting love relationships. It's not all dark. It's not all bleak. There is hope. A lot of people manage it. And recently I've been talking about a lot of very bleak books and poems. Moving on, Eleanor, moving on. This is very good. Catharsis. We need that after the last few. Well, who else but Dorothea Lasky? Yes, baby, Milk. I believe this is her latest, Milk, if I'm not mistaken. The queen of catharsis in this book, and I'll tell you, she loves horror films. She talks about them all the time. You'll see in here that The Shining is a great point of inspiration. This Milk is actually about her experience with, mostly with being pregnant and having a baby and not having the baby. And everything in between. And again, because of the prompt, it made me realize I'd never thought of this as catharsis. And now that I am, because it is, but I just never noticed it really, I never just thought of the word. I realized that the poems in here that have this power but don't have a logic to them that seems to make sense within the world of what is this poem about, or what is this book about, do have this cathartic push that's so, it's so good. I'll give you an example of exactly what I'm talking about. It's called, Do You Want to Dip the Rat? Do you want to dip the rat completely in oil? Do you want to dip the rat before we eat it? Eat it. Do you want to dip the rat completely in oil before we eat it? Tender, tender meat like pork shoulder. 100 traps set, 80 hanging in a row to be broiled. With you, I take it raw, tiny pink feet, glistening with oil, legs and feet glistening with oil, matted fur and face weighted down with oil. Everything in oil, but the teeth are shiny clean. No, what I really want to know before you open that mouth again, should we completely dip the rat in oil before we eat it? Eat it? Should we completely dip the rat in oil before we eat it? I mean, that's a cathartic poem. And it can, you can think of anything you need catharsis for, and it will do that for you. I want to read one more. I want to read a lot more. Let me do this one. Okay, this is a good one. Prepare yourselves. Fasten your seatbelts. This is called Me and You. You know that scene in an old Freddy movie where there's that junkie? She's kind of a punk and seems tough, but with that mere surface level punk vulnerability. She's wearing all silver and black. They're in an alley. She says, "Fuck you, Freddy," and brandishes a knife. He looks at her alarmed, then lifts his arms. "Want to get high," he says, each finger a syringe filled with bright blue on her arms, little pockets and mouths open, beckoning. What does he do? He falls forward with intent, and she knows what she's in for. Who is that? That's me and you. Who is that? That's me and you. See, now I skipped one. Sorry about that. I skipped the incompleteness. Now, for incompleteness, this is the biggest book of the lot. This is really actually very funny. Incompleteness. This is Emily Dickinson's The Gorgeous Nothings. It's been out for so long, you probably know about it. Dickinson wrote a lot of little bits and pieces on bits of envelopes, bits of paper, bits of envelopes. And I guess about a decade ago, a couple of people, Martha Werner and Jen Bervin, I guess, gathered them, took these amazing pictures of them, and put them into a book. As you can see, they also put the, they also printed the words because it's quite hard at times to read her handwriting. Sometimes it looks like the pieces of paper have been cut, and so it's almost like concrete poems in a way. And sometimes it seems that she meant to do it, you know, like if she's mentioning a butterfly and it's cut in a butterfly, but most of them are really just little notes and jottings to herself. And because it's Emily Dickinson, even the tiniest jotting is incredible. So, for example, here's the tiniest one. I mean, really, it's works of art. And that one says, "There are those who are shallow intentionally and only profound by accident." But, you know, most of them don't make sense like that. That was just serendipity. Most of them don't really make sense, but of course, most poetry doesn't make sense either. So it's really lovely to look through this. You can look online. There are quite a few of them online that you can see. You don't have to buy the whole book. Okay, I think that's about it. Thank you once again to Emily Clarice Pessoa, best name ever. I hope that in amongst those books of poetry, there might be at least one that you hadn't heard of and interested in. Yeah, it's a beautiful evening. Okay, I'll see you next time. And don't forget, the only real property is the property of the mind. Bye.